We are officially live, I believe, everywhere except Instagram, and I am making us live on Instagram now. That usually takes a couple seconds. So
you're so tech savvy.
Yeah, okay. Fabulous. Okay. So we are now officially live on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. And I'm here with the phenomenal Scott Leva, who is the author of, I always say her name wrong, so you can always just shoot me. I just love that you just laugh. For 20 questions. And this is, anyone who's watching, this is your opportunity to ask him whatever the hell you want. He is the author of I Am Was Spider-Man. And just to give you a sense of it, the question is, so what does an award-winning second unit director, stunt coordinator have in common with one world-famous wall-crawling hero? More than you might imagine. In his memoir, he talks about his life, growing up, dreams of being an actor, working with Marvel Comics, his relationships with the creators Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and John Romita, who's, I probably just botched his name too.
No, that's correct, Romita.
Okay, good. The movie with Canon Films that also got made, and his work in films today, with stories about working with Steven Spielberg, Clint Eastwood, and a few other famous directors and actors. Winning an Academy Award for an invention that changed an aspect of the industry and even the world that has saved lives. An entertaining trip that takes the reader through a history involving an iconic comic legend that in some ways shaped the author's life and has left a positive imprint on him and many other people who have known him. So with that, I want to say welcome. For those who may not know, I was lucky enough to be the editor of Scott's memoir. So I was privy to all these fantastic stories well before anybody else. And we had a blast, and I think we continue having a blast together. So with that, I'm going to start in with the first question. So what is the first book that you actually remember reading?
I mean, I do remember the preschool books. My mother used to read to me a lot. So, C. James, Spot and so forth. I think the one that I read, which kind of confused me the most, because the main lead in the book was the protagonist, was Peter Rabbit.
Oh.
So I remember that, but always thought, well, he's the bad guy, so. But I actually do remember that book, and still, I don't know if it gave me nightmares as a child or not, but it was just because it was, he was doing bad things, sneaking into the farmer's garden and stuff. But that was probably the first one that left an imprint on me, which I just read last week online. I didn't read it when I was a kid. No.
Okay. No. So who's your favorite author? Any genre?
I mean, my all-time favorite author, and I still have the book next to me, of course, is Harper Lee. That's the book, the movie, everything that just stuck with me. And it's had a lasting effect, even down to the movie, which I thought to this day, if they ever remake that movie, it's a big mistake. I mean, he is Atticus Finch. So Harper Lee.
Got it. Who do you feel influenced your writing?
Influenced my writing? There was a group, because when I decided to finally put the pen to paper, so to speak, boy, talk about an old colloquialism there. I read quite a few different memoirs, which was, I was trying to get a sense of flow and a sense of, I think the one that influenced me the most, that was fun, was Steve Martin. Number one is Walking. Mm-hmm. Is the one that I said, I kind of want that feel. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense.
No, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. And I really admire you for doing that due diligence, because so many people write or they launch into writing their memoir and they don't actually understand it. And you and I have talked about this before. They don't understand like what a memoir is and what goes into it, and you know that there is actually a narrative arc associated with it. It's not just, you know, retellings of stories from your life. So I adore that you did that. So um what books do you feel made the biggest impact on you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'd already mentioned To Kill a Mockingbird. There's quite a few. I mean, the library behind me is basically mainly comic and movie based. But there's a vast library of books and they're all kind of escaping me. I mean, if I were to look at it and go, oh, this book, obviously, as I said, you know, it sounds like I'm selling To Kill a Mockingbird, but that's just the one that just has the most impact this day. I mean, even with the world as it is today, it's almost kind of looking back at that and going, uh-oh, there's a lot of that going on now. There's a bunch of books. I mean, I was an avid reader. The books that you're given that, oh, you've got to read this, you got to read that in school weren't the ones that always affected me. I honestly have never gotten through War and Peace, either book or movie. You know, believe it or not, a lot of the works of Shakespeare.
Oh, I believe that. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I think Hamlet is actually one of my favorites. So even though it would be considered a play, but it's still good reading. You know.
Yeah. There you go.
So.
What? No. Well, I guess I already asked that one. If you could only read one book for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it can be any kind of book. It doesn't have to be, you know, like a novel.
This is going to probably answer another upcoming question, but I'm currently reading the complete works of Calvin, the complete history of Calvin and Hobbes.
Oh my God, I'm so jealous.
Oh, hold on. As I step away. I've been wanting this for a while. This is a huge, heavy set.
Wow.
Okay?
Oh my God.
I'm on volume 1 right now. It's just, he's so clever and reminds me of so much. And he writes kind of a foreword about how we got into it. And I have so much admiration for him, both as a writer, storyteller. You know, I look back you go back to Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird. This is where you come in. The editor said, wow, this is good, but you really need it from Scout's perspective, the young child's perspective, that story, and completely redid the entire concept, which made it what it is. Same thing with Calvin and Hobbes. His editor that liked it said, hey, forget all that other stuff. Focus on this kid. You know, I like his imaginary world. And, you know, so I'm currently, and I could read it forever, to be honest. So once I found it on sale, it goes for $160. I got it for $99, but it's something I've been buying for. So Calvin and Hobbes.
Love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. What book would you save in a book burning?
I mean, truthfully, I don't think there should be a book that should be burned. So, I mean, if any and all, you would save as many as you could. I mean, taking a look at our history, that if the book was written and the book has gone to press and it has some meaning value, good or bad, I mean, there are some books out there that you look at atrocities. I mean, you can go Mein Kampf and so forth, but everybody has a right to their opinion and their ideas and concepts. So I couldn't say just one book. I mean, I think the whole concept of burning books is just insanity.
So. Agreed. So what inspired you to actually write your memoir?
It's a long story.
Do it.
way back. No. Years and years and years ago, back in the 80s, when Canon Films was first doing the Spider-Man movie,
Mhm.
it was this uphill, downhill sort of sweeping. And I always thought, oh, that would make an interesting story. And I kept notes. I met with Joe Zito. I met with Canon Films. I met with Stan Lee. And I had this whole timeline that I said, I'm going to write a book about the movie that I came so close to. And I know I've said this to you before. I'm glad that never came to fruition, even though it's in this particular memoir, it's not the entire. And I realize my passion, and I mean, I was making phone calls to people you don't make phone calls to, like heads of studios and stuff,
Mhm.
because that's how passionate I was. That the character meant a lot to me.
Mhm.
Outside of Marvel Comics saying, "Oh my God, you're Peter Parker. Oh my God, you're Spider-Man," guys that wrote scripts said, "Oh, I wrote it with you in mind." I mean, it's like, so that there came a certain point where I have a lot of stories to tell, from whether it's movies or TV or experiences with Marvel,
Mhm.
that a lot of people said, "Oh wow, it's like what we're doing now. You should have a YouTube channel. You should do this. You should do that." And I finally said, "What the hell? Let's write a book."
Mhm.
So that's kind of roundabout way where it came in.
Got it. Okay. Who did you actually allow to read the memoir while you were writing it?
My wife started, but she wanted to rewrite it, so that didn't go far.
Haha.
I was trying to explain that it was my story in my words, because I remember her changing things. Like, I would say that I had a close resemblance to the comic Peter Parker, and she would change that to Peter Parker was my doppelganger. So I kind of let her do her things. And then there was a woman I'd worked with dogs. I had a German Shepherd, and we used to do agility. And this woman made me the best dog partner. I can't say owner, because we were partners. We worked together. And I learned so much. And she was always open and honest. And when I first told her the concept, she just thought it was incredible. So I offered to let her read it. And she was extremely helpful with little tweaks and stuff. Oh, or a big thing was spelling and grammar, because she had used to teach. But that's okay. But she gave some good insight. She really did. So that was Kara. That if and when I ever get another puppy, I plan to do agility again. So she was extremely open-minded, and she's the one that just said, "Oh my God, I never knew this. Oh, this is so cool. This is going to be a hit." So you out there that need make Kara's words come true, make this a hit.
There you go. If you were at a dinner party with 4 seats, who would you invite, living or dead, and why?
John Lennon, there's a creativity behind him that when I listen to his music, that there's just something that it just touches me. There's something about him, and there's a weird side to him. There's a weird side to all of us, though. I got to tell you, Robert Redford. I like him. I like his politics. I like his beliefs. I like his outspokenness.
Mm-hmm.
I was fortunate enough to meet him. I never worked with him. Mm-hmm. Past, present. God, that's it's one of those questions. It's just I wouldn't mind now, because we kind of went our separate ways. Stan Lee again. When I used to hang out with Stan, there's a side to Stan that a lot of people really didn't get to know. And there's a lot of Stan bashers out there. I posted on Facebook Marvel Comics 80s to the 90s about, hey, I got this book out there, and a lot of it deals with that history.
Mhm.
And if you read the Kirkus reviews, it brings up one of the most endearing things was his relationship with Stan Lee. But some guy I'd never heard of who's in it posted just this word lies. And I'm thinking, is he talking about the Stan Lee? Is he talking about me?
Mhm.
But there's a lot of Stan Lee bashers out there. And my answer to that is I don't think you really knew Stan Lee. Forget the business, forget the politics, for the comic politics, not politics.
Mhm.
Um, so definitely, I don't know why, and I'm not a big fan, but I think he'd be an interesting take. Would be John Wayne,
Oh, okay.
old Americana. That when John Wayne was, he represented the American icon, whether it was the Western, whether it was the war movies. And I never got to know John Wayne, but probably John Wayne.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
No.
What was your last guilty pleasure?
Taking my daughter, who is 27 years old, to Disneyland.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
Yeah, it is. He just said to me again, hey, are we going to check out any of the airbags? I build airbags and design them, and Disney is one of my clients. And every 3 years, they replace the bags for Fantasmic, this big light show that they do out on the whatever the river is there. I should know more about it. My daughter can tell you exactly what it is. And then are you going to need to go back and check the airbags anytime soon? I just simply said, you want to go back to Disneyland, right? She said, yeah. Well, she becomes a kid again, and I become a kid's dad again. So that's my guilty pleasure.
Oh, that's so fun. Oh my gosh. What book is your guilty pleasure?
Well, that's the one I just said. The guilty pleasure is the Calvin and Hobbes book.
Okay.
Just because you have to really love it and know it. I relate to a lot of where he's coming from and what he has to say. He has, which is also one of my favorites, his hero, of course, was Charles Schulz, as so many cartoonists are. And there's nothing that you would look at to go, oh, he ripped that off from Peanuts. I mean, Snoopy was not an imaginary dog that came up with things. Snoopy was, probably the smartest of the whole group, the Peanuts group. And Hobbes, who's very real when you deal with it, is this imaginary friend that you get into the world, and you forget that Hobbes is a stuffed animal. And it's just, so I like the creativity, and that's definitely a guilty pleasure in books that I just, there you go.
Love it. Do you have a movie or a TV show that you consider to be a guilty pleasure?
I have a couple. I love Midnight Cowboy. I think it's gritty. It's New York. They did what's called guerrilla shooting. The scene where Hoffman is walking across the street or doing that walk he did as, Ratso Rizzo. And the cab stops and honks at them and goes, hey, I'm walking here. That was real. And they loved it. They kept it in the movie. It's New York. It's my New York, where I grew up and when I lived in New York. There's a seedy side. Times Square is not what Times Square is now. Taxi Driver, same thing. I think Martin Scorsese, explicit violence, and but there's just something about Travis Bickle. I don't relate to him, mind you, but I just like the whole makeup of them. I could probably honestly tell you most of the movies from the 70s, I think, was an incredible era for movies, whether it was The Godfather, whether it was Taxi Driver or, Deer Hunter. The gripping character-based stories that you just get immersed in. Not that I'm not a fan of Marvel movies. I'm never going to say I'm not. I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you read with music or quiet or some kind of like background noise?
I do like music sometimes in the background. Sometimes when I'm doing things,
Mm-hmm.
I'll have the TV on.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, like, oh, what was that? And I'll click and I'll go back. Modern day now, you're streaming, you can stop and look back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do like having music sometimes just sort of playing in the background.
Okay.
And it varies. It's all sorts of music, from recent music to music back in the 60s or 70s. And, you know.
Got it. Cool. If you could ask for one thing to change the world, what would it be?
That's a loaded question. Um,
I never said these were easy questions.
no, because the state of the world right now, I mean, if you look back to the times, we were never perfect, but even you go back to the times when World War II and America kind of stood on the sidelines, and even then they were thinking whether or not they should join the Axis, because I forget the whole political reason originally that it dealt with whether or not England, because of whatever England did way back or something. But the patriotism and the beliefs that followed suit after, we became a country of love, respect, fear. And I'm missing those values. I'm not speaking just the 40s in general. When you look at our history, and you go back to the 50s and you go back to, the founding of the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, go back to Birth of a Nation, which, if you really, a long movie, if you actually sit through, it's frightening. The crimes and things that have done against humanity, no matter what race, color, whatever, is absolutely frightening. I went to the Skirball Center the other day. It was my birthday, and so my wife and daughter, because they have a Jack Kirby exhibit.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And it talked about a lot of his history, and he and why can't I remember the co-creator that he worked with? I'm thinking Siegel and Schuster did Superman. Joe Simon and Jack Kirby created Captain America as a voice for fighting the Axis. The first comic book with Captain America is him punching Adolf Hitler on the cover.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
He moved. He lived in New York with his wife Roz, and they were like inseparable. But there was a lot of I guess he was Jewish, and there were a lot of people that lived in New York and so forth that hated Jews, that actually believed in what Hitler was doing before we got into the war, which I found interesting because I read this history with it. They were talking about thoughts and so forth. I miss that when I would go to places and travel, that people would admire where I came from, in some cases respect. And now I find that people kind of look at it and smirk, and it's just, so to change the world, I'd like to bring back the values. And I mean that sincerely, not like just a soapbox. I do look at things and go, when you watch a movie and see certain things, I'm not the only person that sits and goes, well, they shouldn't kill the dog. It's the whole concept of the whole movie. So yeah, I'd like to go back to values and dreams that America was first built on. Does that make any sense, or am I rambling here?
No. It totally makes sense. And actually, we've had a couple of other authors who had similar sentiments, who stated similar sentiments. So yeah, no, I totally get it. What does your reading environment look like?
This. I have a media room, which has a couch, and I forget what the other smaller couch is. Not really a couch, and then the large screen TV, and then sometimes I'll turn that on. When I'm reading though, I usually just put the book in front of me and just sort of sit. I am, as I said, currently reading Calvin and Hobbes, but you're also exercising. It's a heavy book. Each volume is like heavy. So I'll usually put that out on a little ottoman there, and I'll read that, and that'll be in the media room because it's just comfortable.
Got it. Do you prefer paper, ebook, or audio?
I prefer paper. I like holding the book. I think that you would hope that books never actually become a thing of the past, that everybody goes digital and electronic. I like ebooks when you're traveling. It's funny. My father likes to hold it. And I introduced him to ebooks on Kindle. And he's got a whole library on his Kindle now he could take anywhere with him, because when he traveled, he'd always bring books and they'd be a little too heavy for him. He still loves books, but when he was traveling more, he loved having the Kindle in it. So that kind of the idea of whether your iPad or your tablet or whatever you got, and to be able to have it so long as it's, I do like the ones that when you do it, it's like the page turns, so digitally, so I like that. So that kind of gives you the feel that you're reading a book.
Yeah, totally. Who would you cast as your main characters and why?
Oh, God. I think there's a similarity between me and Matt Damon. I could see.
I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, I used to double Ray Liotta, but Ray and I have completely different everything. I mean, but there's some things about Matt Damon that just sort of, including that warped sense of humor. It'd be hard to pick things like my wife and daughter. My wife, maybe, Joan Chen. My wife she's Chinese Canadian, but she's more Canadian than Chinese. My daughter, she's an actress, have to play herself, so I can't. She'd be livid if I had brought somebody in to play her. But yeah,
perfect.
Yeah. And for you, Meryl Streep. So there you go.
Oh, sure. If you could meet anyone, who would you want to meet and why? And what would you ask them?
Wow. God, there's so many people in history that I could look back on. Wow. That's a hard one. I don't know. I think he's not my favorite person, but there's just something about John Lennon that I would have liked to have met him. I'd like to ask questions about music, relationships that he had when he was with the band, change his thoughts. I think a lot of what he did influenced the world, in certain cases changed the world. I mean, the Beatles, as far as I'm concerned, changed the entire music aspect of our world.
Oh, yeah.
God, I cannot remember the movie name. It just kills me. There's a storm or something, and this guy wakes up and the Beatles never existed. And so he knows all the Beatles songs and he becomes a big hit. From the, you know the movie, but you can't remember the name.
So, but I can't remember the name of it either. Yeah.
And there's a part of him where he finally admits, even though nobody knows who the Beatles are, that none of the music is his. But in the movie, he goes to meet someone, and I'm thinking to myself, it's going to be Paul McCartney. Oh, and it's John Lennon as an older person who never got assassinated. It was an interesting conversation that they put in the movie, and I always thought I could see that. There's questions you'd like to ask of somebody that you love their creativity, I mean, there are geniuses, there are politicians that I can look back on, but history kind of was an open book with them, and so, um, yeah, well, it's off the cuff. I would say that if I had time to think more about it, I would probably come out and say, something else. I don't know.
No, I love it. Describe yourself in 5 words.
Oh God. Sarcastic.
11:34 a.m.
Really? Thank you. Siri just shuts itself on every time. Fun, sarcastic, stubborn.
Which is a good trait, by the way.
What's that?
That's a good trait, by the way.
Stubborn.
Oh,
I don't disagree. It's definitely outspoken.
Mm-hmm.
Giving.
Yeah, I think you definitely nailed yourself. How about 5 words to describe your life?
Complicated, roller coaster, exciting, innovative, entertaining.
Well done. Excellent. What was your last guilty pleasure? It could be food, whatever. So I know you mentioned going to Disneyland, but like something else.
I mean, guilty pleasure, food-wise, I love carrot cake, and obviously there comes a certain point when you start to avoid foods. But we did have some carrot cake recently, and it was very good. Erewhon's makes a really good, healthy carrot cake, so to speak. But that would be my last guilty pleasure that I kind of indulged. Didn't overindulge, but yeah.
Fabulous. If you could write yourself into a novel, would you be the hero or the villain, and why?
I always look at myself in a heroic way. And there's a part of me that grew up thinking, you need to save the world. The whole reason you get into comic books, whether it's superheroes or classic tales, is you always want the hero to kind of save the world. And I think I grew up with those values. We moved so much that I never got into pigeonholing somebody. Like there's a thing in the book I mentioned that I never saw color, which I hate when people say that. But when I first met a Black family, I saw that they had darker skin, but it didn't have an effect. Like I didn't know the whole Black or Jewish. And for years, by the way, I didn't know we came from Jewish descent. So I never got anything that was like, oh, this is this and that's different. And it was later on when I would hear people say discouraging remarks about Jewish people or Black people or Hispanic people. My grandfather was extremely racist, and I had no concept.
Oh my!
And I was repeating some of the vernacular, and my grandmother goes, "What? Don't say. Where did you learn that?" And I go, "Well, I just talked to Grandpa, Jack." And then that's the last thing ever. So the hero, definitely, because I believe in fighting for what's right. I believe in a lot of TV shows and movies where I've worked, I've played the bad guy. Once in a while, I got to double the good guy or be on a team with the good guys. And verily, by the way, when you're a stunt guy, it's like the red shirts in Star Trek. You're going to get killed. That's your job. You're going to get killed. So, but yeah, to answer that question, definitely the hero, because I was given certain values, including how you treat your family. My grandparents, my parents always instilled in me the thing of really respecting your grandparents, and so I kind of grew up with those values.
Got it.
Say, well, what happened? But no, that's not important.
Is there anyone that you dream you could work with, and why?
Uh, there were actors at the time, directors I've worked with most. I didn't really realize, you know, Pritchie's Honor. Why am I forgetting the director's name? Houston, John Houston. There was
Okay.
a dream of always working. I would have liked to have worked with John Ford, the old director, Stagecoach and stuff. A lot of the people that I respected and admired and grew up with, I did get to meet. The Francis Ford Coppola, the Clint Eastwood, Steven Spielberg, Wes Craven.
Mm.
But John Ford, old history, old movies. Cecil B. DeMille. I mean, this is a guy. Charlie Chaplin.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool.
I think so.
Okay. 2 truths and a lie.
2 truths and a lie. 2 truths and golly. I lie all the time, so it's so hard to come up with something true. Let's see. Shoot. 2 truths and a lie. I didn't learn to drive until I was in my late 20s. I did take a driving course that taught me to do evasive action, like if somebody were chasing you, how to slide the car, how to maneuver. I loved swashbuckling movies so much so that I got into sword fighting.
I'd say the first one.
Yeah, that's true. I did learn to drive when I was 14, so yes.
Is there anything else that you want to share?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, it's easier if somebody says, what do you think? What is that? I'm hoping that where we're going in the world and what's happening becomes better. That we've got a future to look at. I'm hoping, because I've always been an avid book fan and bookstore fan. I love going into bookstores, and I'm hoping I never see those die. I love comic stores, and there's a lot of comic stores that are just going under. So I'd like to see, and movie theaters, for God's sakes, go to the movies. I mean, yes, we have streaming, but it's not the same thing. And most people aren't going to movies anymore. And I'm afraid we're becoming lazy as a society, that everything is kind of right there in front of you on your computer, your phone, your tablet. And to get that, we're going to go to a movie next week. I mean, believe it or not, my family would love to see Lilo and Stitch. It's just fun. And my daughter grew up with that and loved that. I'm glad there's still a little girl in my daughter. I do want to see Thunderbolts just because it looks entertaining. So going to the theater is still an experience where you sit with your popcorn and, yes, you can have popcorn at home, but it's nice to, I'd hate to see movies and I hate to see bookstores become a thing of the past. Like that old Twilight Zone with Burgess Meredith, where the world is destroyed and he's a bookworm, and there's a library and it's got all the books he could ever read for the rest of his life, and then his glasses break. I kind of hate to see the world's glasses break, if that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely totally does. Well, and with that, I want to thank you, Scott, as always. It's a complete and utter pleasure. Anyone who's watching, please, please, please go check out his incredible memoir. The link is actually in the banner. And again, Scott, just thrilled to have you part of the Running Wild family. So.
Oh no, I'm thrilled too. It's absolutely so. Yeah. Independent press is the way of the world. That's all I'm going to tell you. Independent publishers, it is. They're the people that believe in you. They're the people that will be by your side, that don't just kind of throw you in with the masses and forget about you. So if you decide to ever write something, you're going to get a lot of emails and submissions now, Lisa.
Well, gee, thanks.
Yeah. They've got a heart, and if they believe in you, they bring you on board. And so I'm proud to be part of that. Definitely.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.